If your doctor told you your cold feet and heavy legs are just part of getting older, and you are over 70, I need you to stop what you're doing and listen to what I'm about to tell you. Because what sounds like a harmless inconvenience? It could be the earliest warning sign of something that quietly kills 1 in 3 people your age. Not arthritis, not poor sleep, poor blood flow in your legs. A landmark clinical trial called the Flaxseed study, published in the journal Hypertension, run by Dr. Grant Pierce at St. Boniface Hospital, tracked 110 patients with confirmed peripheral artery disease over a full 6 months. These were real people, people just like you, people whose doctors had already told them to watch their blood pressure, take their medications, and try to walk more. And here is what that trial found. Those who added a single daily dose of one specific seed to their diet saw their systolic blood pressure drop by 15 millimeters of mercury in just 6 months. Their diastolic pressure dropped by 7 points. That is a reduction comparable to adding a second blood pressure medication from a seed. Read that again. 1 seed, 6 months. Results comparable to medication. Now, here is what I'm going to cover today. I'm going to explain exactly why the cold feet and heavy legs are normal belief isn't just outdated. It is dangerous. It is costing people their independence, their mobility, and in the worst cases, their limbs. I'm going to tell you the exact daily amount of this seed, the specific form, the specific quantity, that the published research associates with meaningful improvements in leg circulation. And I'm going to walk you through one simple 2-minute home test you can do tonight to check whether your own circulation may already be compromised. No equipment, no prescription, no doctor's appointment required. But stay with me until the end, because the final thing I'm going to share is one everyday habit that almost every person over 70 does without question, something they actually believe is helping their heart, that may be silently making leg circulation worse, not better. Worse. I'm Dr. Andrew. I've spent over 2 decades working with patients in the 60-plus population, and nothing in my career has surprised me more than how consistently this one seed gets overlooked, while people line up for prescriptions that cost 10 times as much and carry side effects that fill a page. Let me tell you about a patient I'll call Dorothy, 73 years old, retired schoolteacher. She came to me not because of chest pain or a dramatic health event. She came in because she was embarrassed. She had started avoiding trips to the grocery store. Not because of arthritis, not because of her knees, but because halfway through the parking lot, her calves would seize up, heavy, burning, like they were full of concrete. She'd have to stop, wait, then walk again. She thought she was just out of shape. She thought it was aging. She had been living with this for 4 years, before she mentioned it to a doctor. Dorothy had peripheral artery disease, and she had no idea. Here is what peripheral artery disease actually is. And I want you to pay close attention to this next part, because this is where most people's understanding completely breaks down. When most people think of clogged arteries, they think of the heart. They think of heart attacks. And yes, atherosclerosis, the process of plaques building up inside artery walls, absolutely affects the heart. But the same process happens in every artery in your body, including the ones that run down through your hips, your thighs, your calves, and into your feet. When those arteries narrow, your legs stop getting enough blood. Not all at once, slowly, over years. And the symptoms are so gradual, so easy to dismiss that most people chalk them up to age. Cold feet in a warm room. That's a circulation problem, not just cold feet. Legs that ache after a short walk but feel better once you sit down. That is your muscles screaming for oxygen they are not getting. One foot that always feels slightly cooler than the other. That asymmetry is meaningful. Healthy circulation doesn't produce that. Toenails that are growing more slowly on one foot than the other. Most people have never even thought to notice this, but it is a real, documented sign. And here is the statistic that changes everything. The one that your doctor probably hasn't had time to tell you in a 15-minute appointment. According to the NIH's National Library of Medicine, peripheral artery disease affects more than 200 million adults worldwide. In adults over the age of 70, the incidence reaches 20%, 1 in 5, and the majority, 70 to 80% of those people, have no dramatic symptoms. They are walking around right now, living with dangerously restricted blood flow in their legs, attributing their discomfort to aging, to their weight, to not sleeping well. But here's where it gets stranger, because peripheral artery disease is not just a leg problem, it is a whole-body vascular problem. The research published in Hypertension and cited by the American Heart Association is consistent on this. PAD patients have dramatically elevated risk of heart attack and stroke. Not slightly elevated, dramatically elevated. Because if your leg arteries are narrowed, there is a very high probability that your coronary arteries and your carotid arteries are narrowed too. It's the same disease in different locations. Dorothy didn't just have tired calves. She had a warning sign painted on her body in bright red letters. And for 4 years she couldn't read it. Now I want to tell you about the seed. And I want to be precise about this because vague health advice is not what you came here for. The seed is flaxseed. Ground flaxseed specifically. And before you click away thinking you've heard this before, stay with me for the next 2 minutes. Because what the research actually shows about flaxseed and blood flow is not what the wellness industry has been telling you. It is far more specific, far more clinically validated, and far more relevant to what happens in your legs after 70 than almost anything else studied in this space. Ground flaxseed contains 3 active compounds that work together on your vascular system in ways that researchers are still mapping. The first is alpha-linolenic acid, ALA for short, the plant-based omega-3 fatty acid. Flaxseed is the richest dietary source of ALA on Earth. ALA comprises 50 to 60% of the fat content in flaxseed. And here is why that matters for your legs specifically. ALA is converted in your body into EPA and DHA, the same anti-inflammatory omega-3s found in fish oil. And EPA has a documented specific effect on your endothelium, the thin living membrane that lines the inside of every blood vessel in your body. When your endothelium is healthy and well-fed, it produces nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is a gas your body makes. It tells your blood vessels to relax, to widen, to let more blood through. That process is called vasodilation, and it is the biological foundation of good circulation. When your endothelium is inflamed, starved of omega-3s, beaten up by decades of processed food and oxidative stress, nitric oxide production drops. Your vessels stay tighter, blood moves slower, your legs feel heavy, your feet feel cold, and you get told that's just aging. It is not just aging. But here's where it gets stranger still. Because ALA is only one part of why flaxseed works. The second compound is something called SDG, secoisolericeresinol diglucoside. That's a lignin, one of the most potent plant-based antioxidants ever studied. Flaxseed contains 75 to 800 times more of this lignin than any other food source. I'll say that again, 75 to 800 times more. And this lignin does something remarkable inside your arteries. It scavenges what are called reactive oxygen species, the cellular waste products that build up inside artery walls and accelerate plaque formation. When you lower oxidative stress in the endothelium, you restore the environment where nitric oxide can actually function. You stop the rust, essentially. Not reverse the rust, stop the progression. And in some cases, with enough time and consistency, the research suggests meaningful recovery. The third component is soluble fiber, and I want you to think about this one differently than you usually would. Most people think about fiber and they think about digestion. But soluble fiber, the kind in flaxseed, has a well-established role in lowering LDL cholesterol. Specifically, it binds to cholesterol in your digestive tract and prevents it from being reabsorbed. Over months, this reduces the raw material for new plaque formation in your arteries, including the arteries in your legs. All 3 working together. ALA feeding your endothelium, lignin scrubbing out oxidative damage, fiber reducing the cholesterol input that feeds plaque. Let me tell you about another patient. I'll call him Gerald, 68 years old, former postal worker. He came to me with an ankle brachial index, that's a simple pressure test we use to screen for PAD, of 0.72. Anything below 0.90 is diagnostic for peripheral artery disease. Anything below 0.70 puts you in moderate disease territory. Gerald was right at the border. He had calf cramping after about a block and a half of walking. Gerald was skeptical. He'd been told to take statins. He was already on a blood pressure medication. He looked at me when I mentioned flaxseed and said, "Doc, you're not seriously telling me a seed is going to fix my arteries." I told him I was telling him the clinical evidence, 30 grams a day of ground flaxseed. Every day, mixed into whatever he was already eating. 6 months later, his systolic blood pressure had dropped 11 points. His walking distance before pain onset had nearly doubled. His follow-up ABI had improved to 0.81. Still not perfect, but measurably, clinically, significantly better. Gerald told me he hadn't changed anything else. Same medications, same diet otherwise. He'd just added the flaxseed every morning. Now, I promised you the specific amount. And this is the delayed part of the answer, and I want you to understand why I waited to give it to you. Because giving you a number without the mechanism is like handing someone a key without showing them which door it opens. The research means nothing if you don't understand why the amount matters. The FlaxPad clinical trial used 30 grams per day of ground flaxseed. That is approximately 2 tablespoons. And that is the dose consistently used across the peer-reviewed literature. Not 1 tablespoon, not a sprinkle. 30 grams. 2 full tablespoons of ground, not whole, ground flaxseed every single day. Why ground and not whole? Because the human digestive system cannot break through the hard outer shell of a whole flaxseed. Whole flax seeds pass through you largely intact. You absorb almost none of the ALA, almost none of the lignans. Ground flaxseed, also sold as milled flaxseed, is pre-broken. Your body can access everything inside. 2 tablespoons of ground flaxseed contains approximately 3.5 grams of ALA omega-3, roughly 800 milligrams of that lignin SDG, and around 4 grams of soluble fiber. That is a meaningful therapeutic dose. Not a supplement, not a drug, food. And here is what you do with it. You do not cook it at high heat. Heat degrades ALA. You add it cold, stir it into yogurt, mix it into oatmeal after the heat is off. Add it to a smoothie, sprinkle it on a salad, stir it into a glass of water or juice if that's easiest. The texture is mild, the taste is slightly nutty. Almost nothing once it's mixed into something else. That's it. 2 tablespoons. Ground. Cold. Daily. Now I want to give you the home test I promised you. And this one is important. It is not a diagnosis. It is a signal. A reason to go and have a proper conversation with your physician. Sit in a chair with your feet flat on the floor. Uncross your legs. Look at both feet side by side. Ask yourself 5 questions. 1. Is one foot noticeably cooler than the other right now? 2. Does the skin on one foot look paler or slightly bluish compared to the other? 3. Is the hair on one leg significantly thinner than the other below the knee? 4. Are your toenails on one foot growing noticeably more slowly, or are they thicker and more brittle on one side? 5. When you press on the top of each foot with your thumb for 5 seconds and release, does the color return at the same speed on both sides? If you answered yes to 2 or more of those questions, see your doctor this week. Ask specifically for an ankle brachial index test. It takes 10 minutes. It uses a blood pressure cuff on your arm and your ankle. It is painless, and it will tell your doctor whether blood is moving through your leg arteries the way it should be. Do not accept your circulation is fine if no one has actually measured it. Measured with a cuff, with a Doppler device, with a number, not an impression, a number. Now let me close the loops I opened at the beginning, because I promised you 3 things. I promised to tell you why the cold feet are normal belief is not just outdated, it is dangerous. Here is the answer in full. When doctors tell older patients their cold feet are just circulation changes due to age, they are not wrong that circulation changes with age. But they are failing to distinguish between benign age-related changes and early peripheral artery disease, which are 2 completely different things with completely different implications. One is harmless. The other triples your risk of heart attack and stroke. 1 in 5 people over 70 has PAD, and the majority are never diagnosed. Your job is to ask the question your doctor may not. I promise to tell you the specific amount associated with better leg circulation in the clinical literature. 2 tablespoons, 30 grams, of ground flaxseed, daily, added cold to food you're already eating, over a minimum of 12 weeks before expecting to see meaningful change. That is the evidence-based answer. And I promised you 1 simple home test you could do tonight. You just had it. 5 questions, 5 minutes, and a reason to go talk to your doctor with something specific to ask for. Now, the final thing, the surprise I told you to wait for. Here it is. Fish oil capsules. Millions of older adults take fish oil supplements every single day because they've heard omega-3s are good for the heart. And in a general sense, that's not wrong. But here is what the research shows, and this is the part most doctors won't say out loud in a 6-minute appointment. The conversion pathway from ALA and flaxseed to EPA in the body is inefficient, yes, but the physical matrix of ground flaxseed delivers those omega-3s inside a fiber structure that slows digestion, reduces oxidative damage to the fatty acids, and provides the lignin antioxidant environment that makes the omega-3s more bioavailable to the endothelium. Fish oil capsules skip that matrix entirely. They deliver concentrated EPA and DHA, but the published comparisons in the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition suggest that the full food delivery of flaxseed's omega-3s, combined with its lignins and fiber, produces vascular outcomes that fish oil capsules alone have consistently failed to replicate in PAD patients. So if you are taking fish oil every day because you believe it's protecting your leg circulation and you have been dismissing flaxseed as too simple, the evidence suggests you may have that backwards. Dorothy, by the way, is doing well. She shops on her own now. She doesn't stop in the parking lot anymore. She added flaxseed to her morning oatmeal every day for 8 months. Her walking tolerance has tripled. Her vascular specialist told her, at her last appointment, that her ABI had improved from 0.74 to 0.86. She's not cured. Peripheral artery disease doesn't disappear, but she is moving. She is independent. And she told me the thing she regrets most is that she waited 4 years before bringing it up. Don't wait 4 years. Do the home check tonight. If 2 or more of those signs were there, make the appointment tomorrow. And if your doctor clears you, try the 2 tablespoons of ground flaxseed for 12 weeks and see what your body tells you. One question before you go, and I genuinely want to know your answer, so leave it in the comments below. Which of these things surprised you most today? That 1 in 5 people over 70 has peripheral artery disease and most don't know it? Or that the fish oil supplement you may have trusted for years may not be delivering what you thought it was for your leg circulation? Tell me below. I read every comment. And that question, your answer to it, is exactly the kind of signal that helps me make the next video worth your time.